Valorant has gone through so many changes throughout its lifetime and even more before it launched. So in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at a pre-release version of Phoenix and comparing him to how Phoenix is in the game now. This is thanks to a new article series they're doing on Play Valorant called Agent Origins, where they talk about what characters looked like in development. And this one's kind of wild. Phoenix originally had a dash and could self-revive, so let's talk about all of that and more. Now, when they described designing Phoenix, they talked about their process of doing so, and they started with the concept of the ult. They wanted Phoenix to be the 1v5 clutch maker, and his ult originally looked really different. Phoenix started with the idea of a back against the wall last man standing character who could fight against all odds. So here's how the ult was originally going to work. They said, quote, "We imagined if you popped it, he would revive and it would tick down to 1 HP, but he wouldn't physically go back to where he started the ult. When Phoenix died in this version of his ultimate, he'd go into a state of invulnerability as he was resurrecting, while also still being able to move. Basically, he could push forward and die, react by popping his ult, revive over 3 seconds, and still be able to move back behind cover. So in essence, instead of having to be something you proactively had to do, you could be dead already and then use the ult from the grave to come back with 1 HP. Now, as you know, Phoenix's ult does not work like this now. Now it has to be proactively used and he goes back to his original spot with full shields and full HP. And what caused that change? Well, they said it was the fact that Phoenix felt like the kind of character that just wanted to run in and start. So they switched him from a character that really cared about being the last man standing to someone who cared about entering for the team. And as such, his ult makes a lot more sense now. I also think it just works better in Valorant's tactical loop. It's kind of similar to the reason that they nerfed Jett's dash to make you have to prime it. It's because that requires you to think a little bit and not just mindlessly be able to revive at any time. It adds some strategy and some counterplay, and I think that is significantly better for the game. But let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. However, his ult was not the only thing that changed. Now let's talk about the 3 other abilities that Phoenix has. Now the wall and the molly were actually some of the original abilities, and those didn't really end up changing. They actually revealed some concept art which looks really, really awesome. And they said that they liked the idea of being able to like deny space with the molly but also run into it. It was that same kind of aggressive feeling, and that Phoenix was self-sustainable. This was actually before duelists and initiators and all those roles were a thing. So they were just designing characters with different like fantasies in mind. And this was one that was a self-reliant, able to get kills kind of agent. And that's what duelist ended up becoming. So in a way, Phoenix is kind of the epitome of a duelist. The idea was you could use the wall, use the molly to make enemies back off, and then be extra aggressive running through them and not being punished, all while being able to heal, which is really, really awesome. And that is what Phoenix has today. However, there is something a little different. Now, they knew that Phoenix needed to have the ability to push, and a good way to do that is flashes. But in this original version of Phoenix, there were no flashes in the game yet. They didn't know how they were going to work. Were they something that any character could buy, or were they going to be abilities? We now know that they decided that they should be abilities, and Phoenix has that. However, originally, Phoenix had a dash. Now, it's a little different to Jett in the fact that you would have to charge up the dash, and the longer you charged it for, the further he would go. So you can kind of think about it, like a really fiery flame trail that he darts down like mid, for example. And so you are vulnerable while you're charging, while you're running, all of that. And I think that's a really, really interesting concept, but it doesn't lead to as seamless of a character. And they pretty much said that when they decided that flashes were going to be abilities, they made Phoenix have a flash. But even that is not the same as it was today. The original version of the flash apparently just went straight, but players had an issue getting it around corners and getting it to the point where they weren't flashing themselves, so they added a little curve to it to make it so you could flash the 90-degree angles in Valorant. Overall, I think it was a really awesome choice. Phoenix isn't considered the most powerful character in the game, but he is the epitome of a duelist, and he can be a lot of fun to play. So it's really interesting to see how he went from a dashing, self-reviving character to a more aggressive, I almost want to say more grounded character that just wants to enter for his team. Flashes, walls, mollies, they're all things that other characters have, but Phoenix kind of does it in a little bit of a unique way. I want to know all of your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think Phoenix would be a more interesting character if he had his dash, or if he could revive from the dead? I think he would be technically more interesting, but I think he's a more well-rounded character this way. Maybe give him a little extra buffs. Now, the other thing they showed off were some like intro animations and art for the original version of Phoenix. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but they originally wanted to kind of portray Phoenix as a good guy. A lot of the time, fire is considered something that like arsonists or bad guys use to burn everything down, and they wanted Phoenix to be a little bit more controlled than that. So they originally were inspired a little bit more by like the sun and solar power. So you can kind of see that in the animation for his hot hands and for his flash especially. I'm kind of glad they ended up where they were, focusing more on that fire aspect. But overall, I think these are some really cool, like, little insights into the game before there were agent roles, before there were flashes. And I'm really excited to see future versions of this with characters like Jet and Cypher and all of those characters. I want to know your guys' thoughts. Would you want the original version of Phoenix or this one? I'm actually going to be doing a poll on this in my community poll as this video goes up, so check that out. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.